Hey guys, we're going to be starting our new unit, which is on World War I. In these first couple of segments, what we're going to try to do is figure out why World War I started. So we'll get a little background on World War I and then talk about how it actually broke out into this massive war. Okay, so if we look at World War I, it's a 4-year war. So it's not, necessarily the longest war, in all of history. There were wars that were longer, but it was definitely the largest war ever seen in history up until this time point. Okay, so if we look at World War I and we're going to think about, possibly why it started. Okay, it starts in 1914, so we go back to the early 1900s. In the early 1900s, Europe was considered peaceful. There wasn't any conflict at this time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that these countries were peaceful with each other. So in the world right now, in the 1900s, okay, these nations had a lot of fear and a lot of distrust among them. Okay, so if we think about the items that we talked about so far, we said that people around the world throughout history always wanted land. And we know that people wanted land because land equaled money and power. Okay, so if you have fear and distrust, okay, amongst nations, so if you're a country and you don't trust your neighboring country, that's going to cause a little bit of tension. That's going to cause everyone to have this heightened awareness, okay, that something could happen. Okay, and that tension is actually going to lead up to World War I. So if we look at the causes of World War I, there's actually 4 tensions, okay, that built up over time, and then eventually it's going to break out into this all-out war. Now on your test and on your midway quiz, you're going to have to identify these 4 tensions and state how they actually cause a war. So if we look at these tensions, the first one is the idea of nationalism, and we'll talk about that on our next slide. Okay, we also have imperialism, militarism, and the formation of alliances. These are going to be the 4 tensions that build up over the course of multiple years, eventually causing the whole world to break out into war. So if we break down these tensions one by one, we're going to start with nationalism. Nationalism is actually a really positive item. Okay, in the United States, we focus on nationalism, how proud we are to be a citizen in our country. So if we look at the definition of nationalism, it simply means you have a sense of pride in your nation or ethnic group. So we do the pledge every day. And we say these things because we are citizens of the United States. We're proud to be in America. Okay, other countries have the same thing. Okay, but it goes past your nation. It could be that you're proud of your ethnic group, your race, the group that you're in, you're proud of them. And that's the part that's going to actually cause the conflict. So a positive idea that can still lead to negative effects. So if we think about nationalism from the standpoint of an ethnic group, okay, it made people want to unite together. At this time, we have those huge empires. We have one country owning land all around. Okay, and the area that they owned was thousands of miles. And they were in control of all these ethnic groups that didn't want to be a part of those empires. They wanted to unite and form their own countries. Well, the only way to unite and form your own country is really to have a civil war and fight for that independence, which is conflict, and conflict is negative. So if we look at how nationalism could cause a war, okay, these empires who had control of all of these people, okay, civil war is going to break out. Those people are going to want their independence. They're going to want their own country because they're proud of who they are. They weren't tied to these large empires. Okay, the empires, that caused war of its own. Okay, so the idea of imperialism, this is one word that a lot of students tend to forget. Imperialism is the idea of these large empires, one area controlling large areas of land around the world. Okay, so if we look at the large empires in the world, okay, we know that all these empires wanted even more land, okay, because the more land they had, the more power they had, and the more wealth they could gain from that newly acquired land. The largest empire at this time was the British Empire. At this time, they owned their country, okay, and we talked about that in the last unit, plus pretty much half of Africa and good chunks of Asia. Okay, remember, British Empire at one time even controlled us. We were independent by this time. Okay, so if the British Empire was the largest, that means they're also the most powerful. So the other empires are going to say, well, we want to be the most powerful, and the only way to get it is to go out and get more land. The problem is a lot of this land was occupied. So if Spain was going to go to Africa to get land, they're going to have to fight the British, okay, for that land. Again, imperialism causes conflict because these greedy empires are now going to compete over the same land. That's going to cause a war. Okay, so all of these countries and empires are fighting over control of Europe and Asia and Africa and so forth. Just some little examples leading up to this time. Okay, so if we look at in the 1800s, okay, imperialism, this tension actually started at that time. Germany and France are fighting over small chunks of land that are in between them. So they fought a war called the Prussian War in 1871. Germany took an area called Alsace-Lorraine, which was high in mining, high in minerals, okay, a lot of wealth there, to make their empire larger. In the early 1900s, France is going to be strong enough to try to get that land back. Again, since it's that high mining area, they want it because it creates wealth for them. So if we think about the greed of land, we have the British Empire, and they're going to take over land. Well, the reason they're successful is because their military is so good. Militarism is the third tension that led to World War I. Militarism simply means the strengthening of your armed forces. Since these empires are going to compete over land, the area that has the strongest military is going to win the land. So these empires are all going to rush out and create these huge, massive militaries that were never seen before. Lots of soldiers, lots of weaponry. Okay, they had tanks at this time, machine guns. The amount of weaponry they had in World War I was unheard of in any other war before it. So all these countries are, having these huge militaries. Well, if we're a country and our military is big, okay, and our neighbor country has this really huge military, that's going to create even more fear and distrust of one another, because we're going to say if their military is big, at what point are they going to attack us? So everybody is on this heightened alert, just waiting for somebody to attack. So everybody wanted to make sure that they were ready to fight. Okay, now since everyone is waiting to fight, okay, they know something is going to happen. These countries are going to say, well, if I'm attacked, I don't want to be by myself. I want a friend to fight with me. So if somebody attacks me, I would hope that my neighboring country, our friend, will send in their troops to help push back this enemy. So the formation of alliances start. So as all these empires build these huge militaries, the formation of alliances is going to be kind of that last piece to the puzzle. So the alliances are going to start in 1871. Remember, World War I doesn't break out until 1914, so we're well before the war actually occurs. So Germany decided to create an alliance with Austria-Hungary in 1871. Okay, so if we look at that, okay, if one country is going to form, okay, an alliance, and they asked one area to be on their team, the other areas that they didn't ask to be on their team would really be considered the enemy. So when Germany forms an alliance with Austria-Hungary, in response to that, France and Russia are going to form an alliance of their own in 1893. Great Britain later on joins them in the early 1900s. Okay, so in 1907, we have two teams. Okay, we have two alliances. We have all the tensions and all the distrust. We have that feeling that war is going to start. But in 1907, Europe is still peaceful. There wasn't actually a war yet. Okay, so then we have to think. So we have all the tensions that started the war, but really what sparked the war. So when we think of war, okay, war is going to be, okay, causes and spark. Causes is what really started the war. Okay, the spark is what broke out the fighting. Okay, and there's a difference between them. Okay, so if we think about what really started this war, what sparked it, okay, it's going to take place in an area called Bosnia-Herzegovina. Bosnia-Herzegovina was a really small nation, and they were independent all the way up until 1878. In 1878, the Empire of Austria-Hungary decided to annex them. They formally added them to their territory. Okay, the people in Bosnia-Herzegovina did not want to be a part of this empire, so they came up with a plan to get back at this empire. So this plan is going to really start the fighting of World War I. Okay, so what ends up happening? When Austria-Hungary takes control, the heir to the throne, okay, the next in line to be king, him and his wife are going to go through the capital city called Sarajevo and wave, okay, and say, you are now our newly acquired territory. They're showing off that they are now the leaders, okay, and the plan is going to start. So as the Archduke and his wife Sophia, okay, on June 28, 1914, they're going to ride through Sarajevo in an open car. Okay, so the Archduke, his name is Franz Ferdinand. That's a guy that you will want to remember. So as they are riding through Sarajevo, the plan is that one Slav, a person of the Slavic ethnic group, was going to take a bomb and throw it into their car. So as they're driving down the street, a man throws a bomb into their car. So we would know that the car would explode. However, okay, the driver took the bomb and threw it back out of the car, okay, and then sped down off the side road. So essentially they were safe. Okay, once they went on the side road, they stopped, okay, they parked, and they regrouped to say, oh my gosh, what just happened? And at that point, a guy named Gavrilo Princip, okay, he was a guy from Serbia, pulled out a gun, and he's going to shoot Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife, okay, the heir to the Austria-Hungary throne. And by that assassination, it's going to end all the peace in Europe. And that's where we're going to stop today, because I'm over my